Flashing red lights pierced the darkness. An ambulance sat parked in the driveway, its red and blue lights glinting off the quiet houses in Willow Creek. In my father's oxygen machine flashed red a silence. Warning, screaming emergency. Marissa, the vice president of the HOA, stood pacing on the lawn yelling at a paramedic. "He's too loud, I have rights then." I heard the words that made my blood freeze. "Ma'am," the EMT said to him, his voice level but billed, "you might have just killed someone." I'd been sleeping just 5 minutes earlier, fell over from exhaustion after a late night of monitoring my dad's oxygen levels with a smart app on my phone. My father has severe COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a ruthless disease that caused his lungs to quit years ago, and we're playing a daily game of keep him alive on hard mode. If you think an oxygen concentrator is loud, you've likely never lived next to Marissa's 3 yap-yap terriers during mating season. Their relentless, high-pitched yipping, ringing out around the neighborhood like a dog. Symphony of anarchy, but noise never troubles Marissa. As vice president of the Willow Creek HOA, she enforces the community rules like sacred law, dispensing punishment with the zeal of a dictator who believes she's on a divine mission. I went back and stayed with my dad after he fell hard last year, and because it's been a war, she once quoted me for a wind chime, claiming it created emotional disturbance to her and her dogs. I didn't believe even she would go as far as sabotaging actual life support, but this was Marissa, and I should have known better. She'd been whining for weeks regarding the noise of my dad's backup generator, a whisper-quiet, medical-grade device tucked away in the side yard, surrounded by noise-reducing insulation. It was less noisy than her sprinklers, hissing each morning, but she said it disturbed her meditation classes. She wrote a noise complaint at 3 in the morning, one evening startling me with a passive-aggressive message from the HOA beau. That night, a small storm blew through, not a large one, just enough to make the lights blink. I checked on my dad, ensured the generator was in place in the event of a blackout, and went to bed around midnight, my body heavy with exhaustion at 2:56 a.m. The power must have gone out just long enough for the generator to hum to life, a low, insistent hum that meant my dad could keep breathing. That must have been when Marissa, in her silk robe of tyranny, had reached her limit. She marched across the street, bullied through our side gate, and pulled the generator plug like it was a screaming appliance she could turn off at will. My dad was asleep, and with the oxygen concentrator off, he had no means of calling for help. He just stopped breathing. I awoke to an eerie silence, the kind that makes your stomach drop before your brain can catch up. The app on my phone wasn't connecting to the concentrator, no data, no notifications, just blanket. Flashed to my dad's room. My heart was racing so hard I could hear it in my ears. He was white, his lips a frightful color of blue, his chest remaining the machine off its red light, flickering like a warning I'd ignored. I panicked, my shaking hands as I dialed 911. Then tried CPR, something I'd only heard of in the movies, never been trained for. I punched on his chest, begging him to breathe, my voice cracking as I whispered, "Come on, Dad, please." The paramedics arrived in less than 7 minutes, a mini miracle at midnight. They took control, working with a silent precision that I admired as I stood watching, powerless and trembling. That's when Marissa burst in dramatic, arms crossed, lips pursed as if she were the one being inconvenienced. She stood in the doorway, blocking the gurney as the paramedics attempted to move my dad and told them he was too loud. I had no idea it was medical. One of the paramedics, a stout man with a no-nonsense face, snapped. It had 3 red stickers, medical equipment. "Do not unplug, are you crazy?" Marissa shrugged, her voice tainted with sarcasm. "Those are not HOA approved decals." I was totally in survival mode, my focus only on whether or not my dad was going to make it through the night. But the police arrived shortly after the EMTs had called them, reporting tampering with a medical device. Marissa started changing her story faster than I could keep up. At first she said she thought the unit was deserted, then that she fell and accidentally unplugged it. Lastly, she told them maybe it came unplugged by itself. The officer, a rumpled-appearing man with a notebook, turned to me and said, "You have cameras." Naturally, I did. Marissa had even complained about my doorbell camera, finding it aggressively pointed at the road. I uncovered the footage, time-stamped as plain as day. Marissa wearing robe and slippers, shuffling along lawn, reaching down, unplugging the generator, and walking away like she'd just taken out the trash when the officer confronted her. She said, well, maybe it was too loud to hear the warning labels. The absurdity of that statement hung in the air like a bad smell. The police didn't arrest her on the spot. They said they needed to submit everything to the DA for review, but the EMT gave her a look that said, what we all thought what she did wasn't just reckless, it was criminal. My dad stabilized by morning, but the doctor was blunt another 5 minutes without oxygen, and he'd have suffered brain damage or, worse. I sat by his hospital bed, watching the rise and fall of his chest, the tubes in his nose a stark reminder of how close I'd come to losing him. That's when the HOA emailed me a friendly warning about violating a temporary sound ordinance with a PDF link to approved medical accommodations they'd written after the incident to cover Marissa's tracks. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. Later that day, I stepped outside to clear my head, only to find Marissa at my side gate again, this time with two HOA board members, Greg and Lydia, holding a clipboard. Greg, a man with a receding hairline, who loved quoting by Lost, cleared his throat and announced, "We're here to formally notify you that your generator is in violation of Section 4B of the Exterior Maintenance Code. Remove it within 48 hours, or we'll pursue fines and legal escalation." I stared at them, incredulous at their nerve. My father had nearly died less than 12 hours earlier, and they were serving me paper like I was the problem. Marissa handed me a form-stamped urgent notice of violation and said, "This is just a courtesy notice." I said, "Do you know this generator is medical grade? Don't you? It's keeping my dad alive." Greg scoffed. "All residents have the same regulations." I told him the police had footage of Marissa trespassing and tampering. Marissa laughed. "That's not how the law works." I didn't know it was medical. I pointed to the 3 red stickers she snapped. "Not regulation stickers." I turned to Lydia, who'd been silent, and asked, "You okay defending someone who tried to kill a man over a 45 Debo home?" Lydia looked down. Marissa hissed, "She doesn't answer to you, they left." But not before Marissa whispered, "It's just community standards," that phrase. Community standards ignited a flame within me. I sat at the kitchen table, my dad still in the hospital, and opened my laptop. I forwarded the video to an attorney, Michael, who specialized in HOA abuse cases. His response was immediate. "This isn't just civil, it's criminal." I compiled evidence, every HOA email, citation, and bulletin on visual. Disharmony. I learned they'd enacted a rule on unauthorized emergency equipment 2 days prior. No vote written by Marissa. A neighbor sent me a screenshot of Marissa in an HOA chat bragging about shutting off the noise. Menace my dad's generator. Michael said, "We're pursuing criminal charges in a civil case against the HOA for negligence." My dad's lungs had taken a hit. The doctor said 10 more minutes without oxygen and he'd be dead. I made it my mission to end Marissa's reign. I filed police report with all evidence and anonymously tipped off the local news. HOA official unplugs man's oxygen machine over noise. The story went viral, headlined "Willow Creek HOA official accused of disabling man's oxygen machine." It went viral on Reddit and Twitter, calling her Queen Marissa of HOA hell. Lydia resigned, posting, "I've lost faith in leadership." 3 more members quit, leaving Marissa alone. She posted on Facebook, blaming the media, HOA, and me for manipulating perception. Comments tore her apart. What HOA policy Marissa with criminal negligence and unlawful interference with medical equipment? Michael found emails between Marissa and a developer describing a plot to push out senior citizens with citations and noise complaints. My father was a target, upgraded charges to include intent at trial. The courtroom was filled with neighbors. The prosecutor played the footage, Marissa unplugging the generator. The silence chilling. They said this isn't about whether she did it. It's whether her comfort was more important than a life. The EMT testified every minute. Without oxygen risks, brain damage, or death, she delayed. Care arguing it was a noise complaint. I described the panic. Marissa's indifference. The jury deliberated 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Criminal negligence, tampering, reckless endangerment. Marissa got 18 months house arrest, a fine, and mandatory service at a medical facility, surrounded by the beeps she despised. The HOA dissolved in an emergency vote. Bylaw, shredded rules, rescinded. Marissa's home fell apart. Her lawn went wild, mailbox overflowing. Kids called it the haunted house she never left in daylight. peeking through blinds, paranoid. My father recovered back home 3 weeks following trial. We installed the solar-powered HOA-proof oxygen system. Wind chimes, sighing. No complaint. A neighbor started a wind chime, exchange a middle finger to tyranny. Marissa's conviction led to a state review rolling back her proposed HOA expansions. Willow Creek thrived, freer, louder, united. I kept the generator humming. A reminder some sounds are worth fighting for.